Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. I love to start this episode with a question. A number of friends and past students used to ask me, why humans are so self-destructive? Now that's a question. Curtis Lindsay says that Arthur C. Clarke once wrote, "It has yet to be determined whether intelligence has any survival value." You can guess why he was using those words. Obviously, human intelligence has provided an enormous competitive advantage to our species so far. That is the point which speaks of the same question. Why humans are so destructive? To start, the problem is not rooted in the religious impulse, nor in the scientific one. These are divergent, but ultimately complementary modes of human thinking that will continue to sort themselves out for many generations hence. And of course, one doubts either of them will go away anytime soon. The crux of the issue is a potentially unfortunate combination of the two particular human qualities. It has been said, we are very good at designing and building tools and systems of all kinds. No other organism can do this to anything near the extent to which we can. The downside of this faculty is that we quickly become dependent on such tools and systems, both as individuals and as a species on the whole. We certainly have advanced beyond being at the mercy of the elements and of nature only through placing ourselves at the mercy of our own devices. Agree? However, we are not very good at long-term planning. And so, as the author points, we think 2 or 3 meals ahead. In a good day, even as far as 2 or 3 decades ahead. But we do not yet clearly think 2 or 3 generations ahead, as a rule. And when we do, we tend to do so only in the same self-interested sense, in which we think about the next meal. We have grown up as a species in an environment in which the days and seasons follow one another predictably, in which time, for most useful purposes, is cyclical, not linear. It's a cruel fact of existence that while the benefits of this arrangement are clear and possible on the short term, its disadvantages are more resident only in the long term. We are, as usual, at least partially, in a straitjacket by our own ascendants. Yeah? You would probably want a human in your questioning or questioning party to help solve puzzles and fashion tools. And the human dexterity score is not too shabby either. Think about it. What for strategic planning and choosing your battles, you would better ask an ant or a fly to come along. Humans are not usually self-destructive on purpose, and even our common delusions often serve a clear purpose, intent to become agreed upon delusions. I think one of the best ways to define a particular human culture is by making an inventory of which agreed upon delusions and the essence of a cultural crisis is the dissolution or the collapse of that inventory of delusions. I think it is entirely possible that humankind may have forced or may be forcing itself into a corner through its exploits. Possibly, this is more or less the natural outcome of an agricultural revolution followed at length by a global industrial one. Humans' greatest mistake to date may have been developing some intelligent concepts of economy before they established wise concepts of ecology. The deeper issue is to wonder whether or not this was ever avoidable for them, given the genetic makeup and environmental situation. The tendency for self-destructive behavior in humans can be attributed to a combination of psychological, social, and biological factors. 1. Psychological factors. Cognitive dissonance. People often experience discomfort when their beliefs and behaviors are inconsistent, leading to rationalizations that can result in self-destructive choices. Low self-esteem. Individuals with low self-worth may engage in behaviors that undermine their well-being as a form of self-punishment. Mental health issues. Conditions like depression, anxiety, and personality disorders can drive self-destructive behaviors as coping mechanisms. 2. Biological factors. Genetics. Research suggests that genetic predisposition can influence behaviors related to impulsivity and risk-taking. Brain chemistry. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin play significant roles in mood regulation and can affect decision-making processes. 3. Social and environmental influences. Cultural norms. Social values and norms can sometimes glorify self-destructive behaviors, such as substance abuse or reckless living. Trauma and stress. Experiences of trauma or chronic stress can lead individuals to engage in self-destructive behaviors as a means of coping or escape. 4. Fear and avoidance. Fear of failure. The fear of not succeeding can lead individuals to sabotage their own efforts, preferring to avoid potential disappointment. Avoidance of responsibility. Some may engage in self-destructive behaviors to escape responsibilities or obligations they find overwhelming. 5. Existential factors. Search for meaning. In the face of existential crises, individuals may engage in self-destructive behaviors as they grapple with questions about purpose and identity. Self-destructive behavior is truly complex. Now the question, is it ever okay to hate humans for simply being self-destructive? It's a question to ponder. A security guard, Derek Frost, said once, "Here's a pretty strong word to use. I myself have a massive dislike for humans as a whole. But to argue," he says, "the point made already very clear where persons are stated, we should all love each other unconditionally. That is also very toxic and opens you up to be used and abused constantly. So, if you take that advice, then luck be with you. Love, respect, even hate are earned. They are not just given. So, it is not really right to hate humans, as that is a very general concept, and holding all of that heat will ultimately destroy you. However, you can freely hate a concept like what is being stated. You are not hating every human, but hating humanity as a whole for being self-destructive. That is fine, as long as that hate does not delete the people who have done nothing to earn your hate. Think about it. There is no moral justification for hating your own species, or any species for that matter. With humans, you have to remember that we are currently operating in a society way beyond what our specifications would allow. Furthermore, evolution prioritizes the individual and pays no attention to the survival of the species, which is why a predator species can consume their entire food supply due to overpopulation and yet starve as a result. We are still just animals when you consider in the end, and you should be amazed at how much we can accomplish despite it as humans. If you are a creationist, however, then it is completely okay to hate humanity for his sins. But is it okay to hate humanity? Question remains. It seems natural to do so. All facts of benevolence are really just smoke and reflections, or mirrors if you like. The world is not as appears on the surface. Human behaviorism, in particular, has multiple facets to human behaviorism, but at its core, we are predominantly egoistic and self-centered beyond measure, while it is relatively social convention to be friendly and good to other people. This is absolutely just a lip service while people play towards what they wish to be the truth. It's a relative thing. Mankind is naturally driven towards exploiting and asserting superiority and dominance over other humans and animals alike. We are, as a result, actually natural enemies. The world has become an ugly place for this reason. It is actually fundamentally against human nature to be benevolent and cooperative. Just think about it. When consciously or unconsciously, every single human you meet is absolutely judgmental, selfish, and power or supremacy seeking for their own personal gain above all else. Yeah. Even acts of compassion and care are just wheels of sorts that only serve the individual the capacity to survive and thrive in the supposed social organism we all belong as humans. Most people you meet are too stupid, if you think about it, to understand this. Refusing to even consider or think about things like this on a deeper level, or just simply do not care. That's where we are at. Generally speaking, however, over half to 3/4 of the population of the people you meet are shallow in their own measure in the depths of thought. And a variety of different issues is so lacking. It is absolutely ridiculous. It seems the humans do not care to understand anything really, sometimes. Those that do truly care are either outcasts or worse. Most people are genuinely remain unintelligent, and it is just a commonplace to be so, particularly in the New World, USA. But they will always seek to act and believe themselves to be geniuses, or something greater, because it serves their power-hungry, controlling, egoistic nature to do so. You see, life is just full of suffering, right? Yet they can be happy in their own paradise when people outside are not so privileged and up to the standards with their lives as they all do. Mental illnesses, poverty, homelessness, ignorance to the environment, greedy political agendas, war crimes, etc. Just think about it. They all turn away from these problems because it is all in the past, remember? They shy away from these topics because it changes their paradise and hurts their delusional perspectives. The author of this part says, "I am tired of it all, but I still have things to accomplish before I die in this world. Even if no one is there for me, I have to keep on going. Even if my life is riddled with many messes of a narcissistic mother and abandonment from my drug addict father and a family completely ignorant of the things that has happened to me, even when I suffered from my trauma in a car accident," says a 19-year-old. They just shrug it off as nothing. Somebody else was asked, "How did you break the cycle of being self-destructive?" And the answer was that firstly, you have to hit rock bottom. From this point, there is nowhere to go, but either up or suicide. Sometimes we damage our lives so badly we cannot move back up. This happened to me, says the young man. I was an alcoholic with bipolar disorder, a felony, and a suspended driver's license. My life as I knew it was over, he says. When even McDonald's would not hire you, you know you have to hit rock bottom. I worked at an adult bookstore for 2 years until I turned myself in to the authorities because I had a warrant for my arrest, as I violated probation for the felony by getting to DUIs. Must be in America. I had lost my way, he says. There is no question about it. I had no supportive family. However, a temporary stay with grandma until I got back on my feet turned into 10 years. He further on mentions recently he was granted a certificate of rehabilitation from the court, which will not guarantee but will enhance his employability. And he continues saying, I hope to get re-employed as a psychiatric tech, which would mean going from making $10 an hour to $35. But I'm not holding my breath, he says. The path to self-destruction seemed decadent and glamorous at one time, but no longer. There is certainly no joy in being pathetic. There is no respect or sympathy waiting for you once you land in the gutter. A winner does not self-destruct. A winner cultivates healthy habits and thinks positive thoughts. Consider. Somebody else was asked, is it normal to hate being normal human? And the answer was, apart from certain individuals that I have been fortunate enough to have crossed paths and interacted with, and a few I have learned about, the written records of who died before I was born. Humans are overall painfully disappointing. In my case, it is rather unfortunate that I don't see humanity separated into cults or ancestral genetics and planetary position, birth origin points, but instead see us as all being one undeniably linked singular species altogether. I imagine it would be much easier to put things into the perspective of us and them, because then when you see a number of terrible things people are doing all over the world, you can at least fool yourself into feeling that the greater percentage of those things are done by them and not by us, alleviating feelings of personal responsibility and guilt. Hate is not quite the right word. I used to feel this way. Once upon a time, not even all that long ago, I felt that the human race was repugnant to me overall. I felt quite neutral being disgusted to be a human being. I felt angry at us all for daring to live so ridiculously far beneath our own current potential for generation after generation, and still being able to call ourselves advanced, modern, and civilized without laughing so hard at the absurdity of such claims that has made us feel physically ill. Somebody else who was asked about humanity's self-destruct mode, and the answer was, the only question is, when? If we think about it, right now we are a fire that burns on the nature, the soul, but logically the fuel will run out at some point because that is the human nature. It is in our nature to want more, believing that we are special, and that drives us more and more into self-delusion and self-destruction. Cleverly said. He continues, maybe we will kill the planet trying to get to the stars, but in time we will burn out our new planet too. And the next, the one after that, and so on until we manage to burn the whole nature, the oceans. It is in our nature to destroy, and even when we create, we destroy to get the resources for it. Death is only natural, so at some point we will all die, and that is only part of the natural cycle of life. And it continues to say, we're kinda losing our fight we started, us against the universe, but our own natures are our biggest enemy. We want more and more because we want luxury, a life full of comfort, filled with greed. Another one said, there were two possibilities here, and in general, when predicting the future. Possibility 1. You are able to consider enough data to make an informed decision. Basically, doing science with a well-understood conditions and a solid theoretical framework to apply them against. Possibility 2. You are prophesying, doing probably astrology, and your words merely projecting your own pessimism as factual by rationalizing pre-existing feelings you have. Your argument is highly variable and does not really contain any explanations or solid predictions. If we find out when the humanity leaves the planet, you would easily adjust to say, we will kill the next one. And if it turns out that humanity can find many planets, there would be no effect on your prediction. What is going wrong with humanity throughout the centuries since their early beginnings? A question for you. Why do people seem to only complain about humanity's feelings and failings? My question is, why complain about something we have no power to change? But instead, do something positive to assist humanity to become their utmost, their very best, and elitist, although some would oppose elitism. Is humanity doomed to fail and be annihilated by their own actions based upon their own currently developed wisdom, prowess, understanding? Or is there any hope for humanity to become the best of their kind? If we can answer any of these questions, then we have made the very first step towards a perfect world. Certainly. A1 systems, which have been developed in robotics, seem to point to a better future if humanity could live with this science fictional idea. A1 was meant to be AI. But there are those thinkers who consider a devastating future war with their own creations, the AI technologies, better and faster computing systems, and robotics. Why not create things for they are able to, which serve humanity and themselves to make life easier instead of dwelling on their own destructive nature of hatred of things, because of their being different or failed themselves? Life will be much better without the worry about science fictional thinking, but down to earth and realistic considerations, we might say, or concentrate on. At least, there are 3 options that I can think of. 1. Humanity was created by a person, a God, or a supreme being who was technologically, scientifically, and excessively advanced. By studying the nature of current humans and humanity in general, politically and religiously, we may discover that sort of eminence who is believed to have created humanity in their own image had failed, and by fashioning imperfect humans in liking of themselves, the creators. A probably created them as an experiment to fail, and or even as self-generating into more perfection. Whereas we also discover that this God person does not interfere, does not love, does not even care. B, this God person did not know how to make the perfect humans, only presenting the feelings of hatred, destructive unthinking, and incapable persons. 2. Humanity is the product of an evolutionary system wherein developing organisms accidentally came together, creating larger and more complex beings, progressing into the current human species with multiple races, but together moving towards a different and more advanced state of being, able to think intelligently. A, they were probably programmed. If they were programmed, then there has to be something that does the programming. And here, I will avoid to go back to the idea of a God person creating a humanity. Our scientists have certainly a lot more to discover and then attempt to describe what has gone wrong or right. If there was some mistake that happened accidentally, as with the rest of humanity's development on the surface of this wonderful world we call Earth and our blue jewel, or our home, there will have to be ways of discovering and attempting to do corrections or modifications. Many stories told in the tales of creation speak of a god or gods making man in their image to tend the earth, create excellent and debatable questions. Was it only to tend the earth and eventually create their own religious identities and using that to control themselves for God or humanity in general in groups and their self-made leaders demonstrating destructive ways of thinking, hatred, jealousy, rage, which have been known to be so for centuries and which are the typical human traits. To a thinking mind, this sort of a creator who created imperfect humans can only be unthinking and uncaring, unsympathetic, hateful, jealous, angry, destructive-minded God. And in fact, we can see that happen right now and proved all the time as with the current observation of the world events. If humanity has developed to their current state without a God and through scientifically measurable and explainable means, and through a magnificent evolution throughout the centuries wherein things went wrong, and in their current state of mind and scientific wisdom they present, humanity would be able to put their efforts together, discovering the missing parts and replacing them with more acceptable, more wise choices. In both cases, we discover that humans have indeed developed a sense of continuity, and living in the forever time and scientifically observed, there is no proof that it exists religiously. However, there is a possibility of an afterlife, therefore longevity of existence. Let us concentrate on the idea of thought. We have a thought universe and a physical universe, which is a denser form of the thought universe. Or simply said, there is a thought universe that we are all connected to. Could this be also a science fictional thinking, imagining, hallucinating? Good question. When there is no previous existence, no previous beingness, how can we find anything to imagine as if we don't have anything to match it with, like an infant having dreams of things unseen before and discovering that dreamt of things have never been available to the infant? Which brings us to the subject of the reality of thought. We are not talking about psychic or occult-based issues here. We are talking about different dimensions that we mathematically know exist. We discovered the communities have been eventually placed in a pickle. They struggle to know what would rescue them from an imminent disaster, because they can see, at least on scientific grounds, on social grounds, and on ethical grounds, and on industrial set of thought patterns, that the situation as it now is in our current days cannot last for too long. And many are panicking that they are eventually going to destroy the entire world's population of humans, all their achievements, all their undertakings, all their dreams, and all their thoughts. Consciousness is considered to be dependent on chemical and electrical interactions in their brains. And if that is so, and it is most definitely tested and discovered to be true? Could they have gone somewhere and somehow wrongly and not understood what life was all about? Today there are scientists who consider that mind and consciousness are separate things altogether from the physical lump of brain. Brain is a tool and an organ in between the dimensions, so that there must be a blockage from the original creators of mind or original development of evolutionary chain. Somewhere along the line, humanity has missed. Are we perhaps in the middle of such development towards betterment of the human race and their systems of progression? There are preachers in our world who consider that there will be a new world of things where nobody will be wanting and all will be in peace. Is it real? Or is it only a dream, like a science fiction? Alas, I tend to go with the second option, a pleasant dream. But in addition, I will say that it is also a dream towards a kind of utopian grand control, serving a purpose, whatever it might be. Stop for a brief moment and consider all the conflicts all around the world. Only a few years ago, there was no such thing, and everything seemed to be reasonably peaceful all around the world. And suddenly, one smart spark of a leader, supposedly, particularly in religious fervor, starts the hateful movement, leading to war and bloodshed, destruction of their own kind. What are the reasons for that? A. One is a result of hatred for humanity, hatred for religious identity, hatred for other political systems, hatred towards other viewpoints. B. Jealousies for the others who must share their wealth and their progress with us for our own industrialization, for our own advanced social systems, for our own belief, for our own ways of living. Think about it. But when all humanity thinks in the same level of being, there can be no solution to the problem. Somebody has to make the start. Where will that start to be made? By whom? Or by what means? Why should many millions die due to the greed and enmity expressed by one leader or many leaders, political or religious, around the world? Why humanity must be led and not being allowed to think for themselves inventively, creatively? Why religious darkness should rule over the whole world, giving them completely unrealistic hopes and dreams for which they have to struggle to achieve? Religiosity and industrialization do not allow humankind to be their own best selves, while all following a leader of finalism, with religiously or scientifically, even socially or simply ignorantly. That is the situation. How can we then control the human mind to stop hatred, jealousy, enmities, destruction of each other, let alone the destruction of the world upon which they live and the nature they are part of? There is a certain notion which the scientists speak about all around the world today. We can manipulate the DNA molecules to reprogram the human being to live in the harshest climates without the need of current precautions, such as imagine people living in the Martian atmosphere, in Martian landscape, without problems. We would have normally with our current human bodies and technologies. If that is not a science fiction idea and can be made possible and real, why not create human species with ability not to hate, not to conduct wars, but advance into a better state of existing on Earth, as well as on different planetary systems? Why not? But can we do it? Remember, today's science fiction is tomorrow's reality, as it has been proven to us from time to time in the past and even only recent times. If it is a possibility that some psychological conditions humans experience are based upon their genetic makeup, which they certainly inherit from their parents, and again, if it is not science fictional and real, then why not be able to reprogram the DNA of every human being to be able to live in peace without jealousies, enmities, and other usually known problems of being a currently known human type? Is this going to be perhaps our future survival as a species? Am I thinking a little too ahead, too forthright, forward, and too advanced? But coming back to Earth right now, studying our current conflicts and wars all around the world have been so far ongoing issue for centuries. The condition of religious upbringing. Many of conflicts have been based upon religion. What if humans would modify their religious thinking, accepting one another in more peaceful ways? This is probably possible. Religion never coming to mind, nor any racial differences. Humanity would recover from their current dilemmas and start living in a more peaceful ways, where they can put all their progress and all their thoughts and creative ideas to create a better future, better AI systems, better robotics, better everything. Are we thinking of the impossible? Is it really impossible to stop hatred, jealousy, enmities, and other aspects of human nature related to it? When we consider human nature, it is very rich in a wealth of knowledge and ability to learn and gain more knowledge, discovering and living in a very peaceful and healthier ways. And perhaps longevity also increased, so that they have plenty of time to invent and do more beautiful things without wars, without destruction, without bloodshed. Is it at all possible? Programming human DNA, also known as genome editing, involves modifying an organism's genetic material to add, remove, or alter DNA at specific locations. This is achieved through various techniques, including the use of tools like CRISPR-Cas9 and other nucleases, which create double-stranded breaks in the DNA that are then repaired by the cell's natural pathways. Let's not go into details in science. Methods and techniques. CRISPR-Cas9. This system utilizes a guide RNA to target a specific sequence in the genome, allowing for precise editing. ZFNs, or zinc finger nucleases, these engineered proteins bind to specific DNA sequences and create breaks. TALENs, or TALENs, a transcription activator like effector nucleases, similar to ZFNs. These proteins also target DNA sequences for editing. Meganucleases. These are naturally occurring enzymes that can cut DNA at specific sites. Epigenetic editing. Well, this approach focuses on altering epigenetic marks, such as DNA methylation or histone modifications, which can influence gene expression without changing the underlying DNA sequences. Now, the chemical reprogramming. This involves directly converting one cell type into another without passing through a pluripotent state. Somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT, transferring the nucleus of a somatic cell into an egg cell, which can then be reprogrammed. Integration. Free programming. Techniques that avoid integrating foreign DNA into the host genome, reducing the risk of mutations. How are these applied, would you say? Simply, 1. Disease modeling. Reprogramming can help create disease models by mimicking the genetic defects of specific conditions. 2. Regenerative medicine. Generating specific cell types for therapeutic purposes, such as replacing damaged tissues or organs. Drug discovery. Studying the effects of drugs on cells with specific genetic modifications. Personalized medicine. It's a good point. Developing therapies tailored to an individual's genetic makeup. Safety. Ensuring the safety and efficacy of genome editing. Those techniques, especially when applied to germline cells. Accessibility. Well, ensuring that these technologies are available to everyone who needs them. What about potential risks? Well, addressing potential unintended consequences and off-target effects is possible. social implications? Considering the broader socio impact of genome editing. Well, there are many ways of altering the genome of human beings, and many of them are currently experimented and known to exist. And work is continuing for a very important cause. That's where we are at. I will say that after all, we will end this episode here now until we meet you again by the next episode. Until then, as I always say, keep smiling, be happy. Thank you for watching and sharing. Until we see you again.